Hi, I'm Simon Peck, and I'm a people manager and a builder of software engineering teams. What are your remote meeting pet peeves? There are a lot of things that I can't stand when I'm in a Google Meet or Zoom meeting, and I wanted to run through a few of those things here. Let me know in the comments what yours are, as I would love to hear that. Number one, having your camera off. The most annoying thing to me, definitely, is the person who has their camera off. I understand if you're sick, if something's going on in the background and you cannot have your camera on for a legitimate reason, but there are way too many people who simply don't turn their cameras on. To me, that's the equivalent of walking into an in-person meeting with a bag over your head. It's kind of a selfish move if you think about it, because you're receiving all of the visual information from everybody else in the meeting, but you're not transmitting anything if your camera is off. Number two, grease on the lens. Please take a moment to wipe the schmutz off of your camera lens. Unfortunately, the lens on most laptops is placed right where your thumb goes when you're opening the thing, so it's very easy to accidentally lube up the lens with the grease from that pastrami sandwich that you had for lunch. But be sure to wipe the thing off once in a while, or it creates like a blurred soft focus effect. It only takes a little bit of dirt on the camera lens to really screw up the image because the lens is so small. Bad lighting. Number three, bad lighting. Turn on some lights. Anything is better than nothing. Do not take a meeting in the dark. Sadly, the market has been flooded with low-quality LED lighting. Most of it is lacking in the red spectrum, and while the eyeball can correct for this, a camera cannot. Usually when red lighting is missing, it makes things look a little bit green or weird. Things look funky. So if you're going to use LED lighting, you need to make sure to get full spectrum, and you probably have to spend a little bit more on it. There's a lot to go into here in terms of lighting if we wanted to, but simply put, invest in full spectrum light sources that are between 2700 kelvins and 3200 kelvins if you're trying to match indoor lighting, and let your camera's white balance do the rest. If you're trying to match the light coming in from a window, you want 5600 to 6500 Kelvin light sources because they're closer to the color of the sun. There's a lot more blue in the sun than typical indoor lighting. And if you're using completely artificial lights, go for warmer tones. And I probably should back this up with some credible source, but they're usually shown to convey more of a sense of positive energy, enthusiasm, happiness, and they just look more aesthetically pleasing. Hollywood has known this forever, and it's a common lighting technique in movies to make things look a little bit warmer. Other sins in lighting include being backlit, which in its worst form is similar to not having any lights on at all. When you're backlit, there's a bright light source behind you, and your camera's meter is going to automatically average out the light intensity over the entirety of the frame, and so your face is going to end up looking dark. People can't read your body language or your facial expressions in that kind of lighting. Number four, low quality video. We're all professionals here. We're doing this for work, so please invest in a high-speed internet connection. Get way more than you actually need so that background tasks on your computer or other people using your internet service at the same time don't prevent you from transmitting high-quality video. That means you need a fast upload speed. Your download speed does not affect how you look to other people. If you have a fast download and a slow upload, you're still going to look like garbage on the other end of the line, even if you have a great camera. And buy a great camera. Get an external camera with a wide aperture that you can set manually. Connect the HDMI output of that camera to an HDMI to USB converter and plug that thing into your computer. The reason you want a wide aperture and the ability to adjust it manually is because it'll affect the control that you have over how blurry that your background is. Which brings us to point number five, the artificially blurred background. This is horrible with the current state of technology in Zoom and Google Meet. Everything is blurred the same. In real life, the way that the human eyeball works, things that are closer to the plane of focus appear sharper, and things that are further away appear blurrier. Natural optics blur things further from the lens more than they do things that are closer to the lens. You can achieve that by using a camera with a wide aperture. And the beauty of this technique is that you can also demonstrate how much to blur the background. Like, look at mine right now. It's pretty blurry. I could blur it even more if I open the aperture all the way up, and if I close the aperture down, now the background is pretty sharp, even though it is far away. I'm going to put it back to a setting that I like. I'm not fully open here because I want people to be able to make out some of my background, as the background transmits information about you as well. Which brings us to the fake background. While the fake background can be fun and useful in some contexts, using a fake background is usually distracting. Fake backgrounds quickly become annoying. It's kind of like that joke t-shirt that you put on. It's funny for the first moment, the first time you walk into the office, but once you've read it, it immediately becomes tiring. Number 7, the side view. This is awful. The side view looks like you're not even paying attention to the meeting. Are you listening? Are you doing something else? You might be completely invested in the meeting, but nobody knows unless you speak. And then when you do, they're listening to what you're saying to see if you were paying attention or not, or if you're faking it. Also, there's no way to make eye contact from the side view unless you turn your head, and then it definitely looks like you weren't paying attention before. Put the camera as close to the screen as you possibly can so that it's easy to make eye contact with people and it looks like you're giving the meeting the attention that it deserves. Number 8, the cutoff head or not filling the frame totally. We've all seen the person whose laptop screen is pointed at a weird angle, so you're either looking at a pair of eyes cut off at the nose or you're looking at the mouth and the torso. When your face is cut off, it limits the ability to transmit communication through facial expressions. So much of our communication is nonverbal, coming from the eyes, the nose, the mouth. And if your face is not fully visible, you're limiting the amount of information that you can communicate that way. Number 9, multitasking. Be in the meeting or be somewhere else. If you're multitasking, you're not doing your job. You're probably doing 2 or more tasks poorly at once. You're going to miss small, important points in your meeting, maybe even big ones. You're not going to pick up on other people's reactions fully, and you're also probably doing a poor job at whatever the other things are that you're doing. If you cannot fully invest in a meeting, don't show up. Or show up. Be present. Hold off on your other tasks until the meeting is over. Maybe you need to leave early, or if the meeting is under your jurisdiction, make the meeting shorter. You might think you're making yourself more productive, but really you're wasting everybody else's time. Fundamentally, the way that you present yourself in meetings has a tremendous effect on your personal brand. This is the way people think about you, consciously and subconsciously, and it becomes rooted in the minds of the people you interact with on a regular basis. You have a personal brand whether you're aware of it or not. It either happens organically or you can define it. This is a 2-part series, and in this part, I'm focusing on how you can sculpt your personal brand by the way that you come across visually in remote meetings. In the second part, we'll talk about how you sound. Nonverbal communication has a significant effect on how you communicate, so it's very useful to cultivate a practiced visual communication style if you want to have control over your personal brand. On the visuals, we've been talking about personal appearance, video quality, lighting, backgrounds, and body language. In the second part of this video, we will talk about the way that you sound, the sound quality, room acoustics, background noise, and communication style. So let's talk a little bit more about personal appearance. We talked about the obvious things like turning your camera on, but body language is the fundamental way in which people communicate. It lets people know that you're paying attention, and it helps the presenter know that their message is being received. Maybe they need to dive deeper into something or they need to slow down, and the way that your reactions are communicating that will help them understand. Or if you're the presenter, it helps you control how your message is being received. When considering your personal appearance, whether you want to be more formal or casual or even have a disheveled appearance as a form of self-expression is completely up to you. It can be useful to understand the factors you have control over when presenting your appearance, though. Even if you're casual, being well-groomed can cause people to consume your message more seriously, unless, of course, you're a back-end developer or a DevOps engineer. In that case, you might take pride in deprioritizing your appearance. And that's fine. If you want to communicate that you don't prioritize style, fashion over competency, that's totally fine. But you can choose to be deliberate and reveal that capably, or you can allow it to happen by accident. Video quality. Video quality is important no matter what you're trying to convey, as anything you communicate visually will be shared poorly or even incorrectly if you can't share it well. You absolutely need a fast, reliable internet connection and a decent external camera. You'll need a camera with manual control over aperture size and one that has HDMI output. 4K resolution is not necessary, 1080p is fine, and actually Google Meet and Zoom don't even support 4K at this time. I use an external camera even when I'm traveling, and a portable audio interface, a microphone. I'd be happy to cover this setup in another video. If you're interested, please let me know in the comments. Lighting. The most important factor in good video is lighting. I cannot stress this enough. More important than what kind of camera you use, lighting will affect the image quality and how well you're able to communicate visually. All other aspects of visual communication, including body language, will be amplified if you have good lighting. By good lighting, I'm mostly talking about the brightness, the position, the softness of the light sources. Softness refers to how hard of a shadow that a light source casts. If you don't know anything about lighting, the sun is your best friend. You don't want direct sunlight, but being near a window or diffusing the light with some kind of a window treatment like blinds or shades will likely provide the best lighting that you can get. A bare window is fine as long as the sun is not directly blasting in. One of the worst things that you can do is present yourself in extremely low light. With low lighting, it really doesn't matter how fast your internet connection is or how good your camera is. The image is going to be riddled with noise and digital artifacts, and that obscures anything you're trying to communicate visually. If you're a manager, having good lighting is extremely important because your direct reports will be trying to determine the things that you're saying with your body language. They'll be trying to read between the lines where necessary. Use good lighting to your advantage to help you communicate exactly what you're trying to share to your team. If you're going 100% with artificial lighting, you're going to need at the very least a single large diffuse light source known as a key or your main light, or you can use multiple light sources. If you choose to be a bit more advanced, a light source can be placed off screen as a kicker to create an outline of your figure or a rim light. A general rule of thumb with your main light is that you want a large light source placed far away, and that will provide better lighting than a small one up close. Which brings me to the ring light. Ring lights have no place in a virtual meeting. Nearly 100% of the time they're being used incorrectly. Ring lights only work as designed when the camera lens is in the center of the ring. If they're used that way, they can create a virtually shadowless, very flattering appearance, but when used properly, it also means that your camera lens cannot be placed as close to the screen as possible, limiting your ability to make eye contact. A large rectangular diffuse light source is better for remote meetings. I can do a deep dive on lighting if it's of interest, so let me know in the comments. I used to work in the film industry as a lighting technician, so I'd be happy to share some of that experience here. Now let's talk about your background. We've already talked about blurred backgrounds and fake backgrounds, but I want to talk about what's in your background. When you totally blur out your background or obscure it, you're missing a huge opportunity to share something about yourself with other people that you're in the meeting with. You can actually utilize your background to communicate more information about yourself. It can tell a story about who you are. Maybe you want to share something about your personal interests outside of work. Maybe you want to look like a consummate professional and have your books about artificial intelligence and machine learning highlighted. Whatever you do, it's a great tool for helping to sculpt your personal brand. I would not recommend having a completely barren background unless you want that to be part of your personal brand. Body language. Body language is a massive topic. A couple of things to be aware of are eye contact and expressiveness. One of the most challenging aspects of virtual meetings is establishing eye contact with the other person. And this is because the camera lens is not in the same place as the screen. If you're looking at the screen, you're not making eye contact. If you want to appear to be making eye contact with someone, you have to look directly into the camera lens. The rest of the time, you should try to keep your camera lens as close to the part of the screen that you're looking at as possible. When it comes to expressiveness, in virtual meetings, you might need to force yourself to be a little bit more expressive than you normally would in in-person meetings. And this is because we are limited in visual capability to the face and the torso, and only one side of it at that. You might need to deliberately communicate when you normally wouldn't. This is because a lot of people find it challenging to express disagreement in group meetings or even in one-on-ones, and the way that they do that is by being silent or immobile. If you remain expressionless, non-reactionary, or immobile, this can often be perceived negatively, or people might think that you're disagreeing with what they're saying. If you agree, be sure to express that. And you might also want to work some hand gestures into the video as well. The way that you present yourself repeatedly, habitually over time will eventually help you establish a personal brand in the workplace. Over time, it can help you develop a strong reputation. You could be perceived as available, responsible, genuinely caring about your work. And it can help with your manager's perception of you as well. And it'll help communicate with your colleagues that you're a reliable and important member of the team. In part 2, we'll cover audio. How you sound is arguably more important than how you look. So we'll talk about creating outstanding audio delivery that can completely stand on its own in the next video. Thanks for watching this video, and hit the subscribe button if you want to be notified about part 2. I hope you got something out of this, and I appreciate your support.